where it ended up.
Bottom line is, we can't afford it. Any other questions from Recreation? Yes, ma'am. We are not. The article has been removed from the warrant. It's not that the board has dropped its support for the project. We are very much in support of the project. It's a case of it not being sold to the public, and more work has to be done in that area. Before we can even make a decision on what the split would be, we need to have a couple more public hearings, and that'll take place later in the year.
Oh, but I don't know if they've agreed, or I didn't want to seem like I was cutting her off. I know that they've been here for the last 45 minutes. If they do have some information that they'd like to present, I think it would be fair to hear from them. I realize she's been waiting a long time to see.
It's just the article that was brought forward 12 years ago, and brought it, every couple of years, and brought it back, and just on the field basis. Besides that, we really need to change it, because there's no grass on there, and people might play, no matter what. And it just says, no grass on there, every time, every time there's so many people playing. So it needs to be done something, that we've taken a massive ball, in all the fields, and saying, if you think there's being a little bit unsafe, you should fix it. You know what I mean? Because we did 12 years ago, we had in there about $50,000, and probably could have done 12 or 13 years ago, next year it was back. I didn't change that. So it needs to be done. We can keep putting it off, I do not have the staff who wants to tell you how many people that got hurt there, and whether they would have got hurt other than grass. Whether I can't tell you that, but I know we would take out of commission that field, we can't play, or the person who should play there, that's to play more on the field, and that's more people that do that, so I think it's dangerous and something we need to do. I guess we put it in the warrant article, to have everybody just look at it individually, just like you would choose your, not to tell you when you should put it out, that's really just looking to $1,000, so a lot of money no matter what. We just thought, to be honest with you, the black board was able to put some money towards it, before the budget got cut last year, and obviously we want that position for that. But we were hoping to do, we were coming to town, maybe ask for, $100,000, maybe we were trying to put it, some of the money over 2 years now, but, we were only doing like $100,000 for the last year, budget, so we only be out to the students, we should, we're gonna ask, we should ask for 3 years from now, is that 200,000, and we're gonna be 280, 3 years.
Thank you.
It's just really, the thing is, we talked about it at the finance planning team too, and the school department opted out of it too at this particular point in time, because again, it doesn't fit into their global plan, but there's no doubt, that field is it's a great space. It's a great space, and it's certainly utilized, but it is in deplorable condition, and it would be nice if we could, as you say, get it up to snuff so that it's safer, and it would give some relief to some of the other fields that are now taking a beating because you can't use that one because of its condition, but, in the whole scheme of things at this particular point in time, it's falling by the wayside as far as prioritization of funds and projects. And there's no doubt we could use more field space, and again, that's prime property, prime real estate, that unfortunately has fallen into a state of affairs that isn't very good. And this is years ago watching the softball, soccer, and baseball teams up there playing, and it's like, holy smokes, the conditions are awful.
Actually not.
No. No, I know, but they were playing there, and they left because of the conditions. I'm not disagreeing with you, but
It's causing more,
Stress.
more money in other fields because we're getting more stress. And they're trying to just be, I know we have to financially elevate, they're looking at what we have to do to protect our inventories and compare them so we don't cost us twice as much as we do.
Yes, sir.
Something like that. This year now, the freshman soccer team playing down at River Park. The fields are, you've seen, they're unsafe. I know the JV plays up there, but I don't know what it's gonna take for, what kind of injury it's gonna take in the eyes. If you wait, as you said, I mean, a couple years down the road, it's gonna cost us more and more each one we wait. What's gonna happen up here? It's still school, it's still junior high. Just gonna let it keep going, getting worse and worse. It's gonna go, we get worse from here.
Is the cross playing up there now? Still? Cross?
They're also playing at
Sean?
In terms of the middle school fields, no doubt it needs to work. I wish I could support it. Unfortunately, when you're looking at the list that we're looking at in terms of what the town needs to do, unfortunately, in my opinion, it doesn't rise to the top at this point in time. I wish we could afford it. I don't see how the town could.
1993, though, we got it,
Probably a lot of things that should have been done differently and done better back then, but weren't. So we have to pay for it now, but hopefully we can get caught up at some point.
Well, you missed the earlier presentation. We went over the numbers, just trying to take care of the items that we have to fund at October town meeting, snow and ice and energy fund, additional energy costs. And we look at our capital, and unfortunately, the Eisenhower property chewed into a substantial amount of bonded debt that has got us watching very carefully what we can afford additional bonding, even with the stabilization fund. So what happens is, we look at that from the point of view of trying to hold our non-exempt debt flat, because that has to be paid every year first. We pay that, we pay our employee benefits, and our retirement, and what's left is what funds our operating budget for general government and schools. And, we're just in a very precarious situation with concern over revenue shortfalls in our this year's budget estimates, such that, we've actually asked the town administrator to hold up hiring and not spend money on some programs that we've funded that can wait until later in the year when we see how things break. Now, we're only into the third month of the year, and we don't have a lot of experience as to what some of these costs are going to be. So it's unfortunate. We'll revisit it again in April. And if the, I guess my advice would be, if the field is unsafe for play, then I would close the field. Until,
Pretty much everybody's almost done that, is by the nature of it, it's not a great deal, people are like, no one shut them down behind them, to allow them to play in the field twice as much.
If I can comment on that.
Mr. Vino.
Yeah, thank you, and I mean no disrespect to the Recreation Committee whatsoever. I know how hard you work in plays this, so don't take this the wrong way. I'm wondering now if the town has any added exposure. We've had the committee come in and say it's dangerous, somebody's gonna get hurt, what injury is it gonna take? Should we in fact close that field? I mean, is this something now that, God forbid, some child or some adult gets hurt and says, you were warned? The Recreation Committee came before you and said it's too dangerous to play on that field. I just don't know. I mean, I can appreciate your honesty, but I mean, I think I'm thinking the same lines as Mr. Misery. I don't see how you can allow anyone now to use that field. I know it creates an awful problem for you, but it's been made in the public now that this field is too dangerous to use. I don't know. I just want to bring that up. But I don't know if you still use it.
Yes, sir.
In response
response to that, we should be shutting down Kids Park. We should be shutting down Martin's Pond. I mean, if you're gonna shut fields down for that, you gotta take it seriously with all your recreational facilities that we're trying to keep up and running and get grants for, whatever the rec department is going for. You can't just isolate it to that. I mean, I don't know much about the middle school, but that would also be their recess facility too.
Well, I'm not,
Close that down for the schools.
I'm not trying to isolate it, but I have not had any other committee come in and say, Martin's Pond is so dangerous, we should not be using it. This is the first time I've heard this. I'm not saying everything doesn't need repair or upgrade, I agree. But I just think we have to be a little careful what we say in public as the fact that the field should be closed because it's so dangerous. That's, you know, I mean no disrespect either, you know what I'm saying. We have more exposure now because this has been said.
It's still like any other field in town, that after a rainstorm, after this, it's gonna have no problem, and we don't get to pick up tomorrow, it's like a pothole, you have on Main Street.
Right.
You don't shut Main Street down with a pothole, you just put a cone there, you hope that people go around.
Right.
I just want you to know, the rec has done their part, that on the barbecues, a lot of times myself, Martin, and flags, we say, you don't say flags.
Don't go there.
We stay away from that. I want you to know we're doing our part.
Contrary to the contract, but that's correct.
No one's questioned the effort the Recreation
Right, no,
Committee does in
no.
their contribution to the community. Any other comments before we move on to the Town Administrator's report? And Rita, there's a yellow document that was handed out, which was the presentation that was made on the numbers.
This is what we're at. Thank you.
Town Administrator's report.
In your packet tonight?
Yep.
The Public Works Department reported a major water line break today on Chestnut Street near Moynihan Lumber. The break was discovered at approximately 8:30 a.m. and was fixed by 3:30 p.m. I'm speaking with the Public Works Director. This specific section of Chestnut Street adjacent to the break has a temporary gravel patch. The road will be paved when the subsurface area has been fully compacted to permit the installation of a binder coat. And as some of the board members know, there was also a break that took place on Susan Drive over the weekend. Although they're not necessarily near each other, it's possible that that original break created some type of stress on the system that resulted on the break that took place on Chestnut Street today. It was fairly major, and a portion of the community was without water for that period of time. So
And ours was brown
you got brown water.
all day.
Yeah, our water is still a little brown. Yes, Rita?